Okay, let's just dive right in. When we talk about cultural artifacts that are, hundreds of years old, like Kabuki theater, which got its start back in the 17th century,
Right.
we almost always approach them with this kind of reverence.
Right, through a historical lens.
Exactly. We focus on the history, the costumes, the pure artistic expression of it all. But what if that historical lens is actually, what if it's stopping us from seeing what this system really
And
is?
that is the central, I'd almost say explosive hypothesis of the sources we're digging into today.
It's a total reframe.
A complete reframe.
Right.
We are not looking at Kabuki as some kind of historical relic. We're treating it as a complex, highly advanced, pre-digital technical manual. The core idea is what some are calling the Edo VR hypothesis.
Edo VR. I love
The idea is that Kabuki is the original analog immersive system.
that. Is just absolutely fascinating to me. So we're essentially looking at the entire theatrical apparatus, the stage, the movements, the sound, not as art, but as a 17th century system designed for, what, engineering human perception.
Engineering human perception and cognition. It's technology, just, without a CPU.
Right.
It's really an exercise in system optimization, psychological hacking, and even human-machine interface design.
Yeah.
All of these things were being executed long before we even had words for them in the digital age.
So our mission for this deep dive is to break that system down.
Precisely. We're going to analyze the key components that allow these pre-digital artists to invent features that we now rely on computers for.
Yeah.
Things like bullet time, augmented reality, and some pretty deep biohacking.
I think for you listening, you're going to get these instant aha moments as we dissect this. We're trying to move past just cultural appreciation.
And into technical admiration.
I think the biggest technical claim, the one we have to tackle first, is this idea that they could manipulate the audience's sense of time and focus. I mean, that just feels like something that should require video editing software.
It does.
So let's start with probably the most famous and most aggressively engineered move in the entire Kabuki vocabulary, the me.
Okay, the me. Conventionally, if you ask someone what a me is, they'll say, it's a moment where the actor strikes a dramatic pose and freezes.
Right. A cool pose.
A cool pose.
Right.
They focus on the visual spectacle of that static image. But the technical reality, according to this analysis, is that the me is a dynamic control process. It's designed to do two things at the same time, which are implement a close-up and stop the clock.
Okay, wait. Implement a close-up without a camera. That still sounds completely impossible to me. How do you force hundreds of people to focus on one tiny micro-expression from way across a huge theater?
You do it with contrast.
Yeah.
And with a sudden, really extreme stop.
Cessation of motion.
Exactly. Think about it. In the middle of a chaotic stage combat scene or some high-speed action, there's a lot of visual noise, right?
So, yeah, stuff happening everywhere.
The me functions as this sudden, sharp, almost violent pause that just forces all that visual noise down to zero. The actor have to freeze their movement abruptly and completely.
And that creates a moment of total stillness in the middle of all the chaos.
And that stillness, that is the core mechanism for what we're calling time dilation.
So just by achieving this state of absolute physical silence, the actor has basically hit the pause button on the entire narrative universe of the play.
That's it, exactly. When the actor freezes, and they can hold this for a really long time, sometimes several seconds, the world of the play just stops moving. It is the analog version of the cinematic effect we now call bullet time.
From The Matrix.
From The Matrix, yeah. Everything else slows down or freezes completely. And that gives the audience this crucial, forced moment to process one single piece of visual information.
The character's peak emotional state.
Their peak emotion, the moment of ultimate realization, the big turn of fate. It's a spotlight, but for the mind.
That makes the duration of the me a really important metric then, doesn't it? A quick pose after a sword flourish is functionally totally different from a long sustained freeze after a character realizes, I don't know, that they've been betrayed.
Oh, absolutely. The duration of the me is the theatrical equivalent of an editor's cut duration in a film. A short, sharp me might just punctuate a moment of physical power, like a successful attack, a quick visual accent.
Right.
But the sources we're looking at, they really highlight the terrifying power of the long me.
Mm-hmm.
If the actor holds that pose, holds their breath, holds that focus for 5, 6, 7 seconds, the narrative tension just skyrockets.
It's an analog signal for a massive internal event.
A huge internal processing event, yeah.
Yeah.
It maximizes the emotional transfer to the audience. And this is why we have to use the source's killer phrase here, because it's perfect.
Go on.
It's manual bullet time. They are literally manipulating the perception of time using nothing but a highly disciplined analog body.
That is a staggering claim to prove with just a human body.
Wait.
But, okay, let's dig into the other part of that close-up mechanism you mentioned. Focus control. The actor isn't just freezing. They're doing something very specific with their eyes. A really unsettling movement called the Tenchi-gan.
The Tenchi-gan, right. It literally means heaven and earth gaze.
Hmm.
And this is the specific optical hack they use.
The hack?
The actor has to forcefully cross their eyes, moving their pupils in opposite directions. It creates this dramatically exaggerated, unfocused gaze. Now, your first question might be...
Wouldn't that look goofy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that look goofy and just break the immersion?
That's precisely what I was thinking. If they're trying to show this moment of ultimate power or focus, why would they introduce a visual element that seems physically disruptive or clumsy?
The answer is all about the technical requirements of the environment and the nature of the symbol. You have to remember the context.
Candlelit theaters, long viewing distances.
Right, and the actors are wearing this elaborate white makeup, the oshroi. The Tenchi-gan isn't meant to simulate realistic focus. It's meant to signal that the character's focus has shifted from the external world to the internal world.
Ah, so it's like a user interface icon for internal processing.
Precisely. If the character were looking at an object, say their enemy or a letter, their gaze would be fixed on that point. By using Tenchi-gan, the gaze is intensely directed outward at the audience, but it's totally unfocused on any physical object in the play.
So it's a signal.
It's a signal that the character is not focused on fighting the villain or reading a scroll, but is actively radiating energy outward. It forces the audience to stop looking at the stage action and instead look deep into the character's soul. It's the mechanism that ensures the close-up actually lands. It forces that psychological processing time.
And to sustain that intense focus while also holding a physically strained pose, they use this other trick, what the sources call the energy-damming psychological hack.
This is where the physics meets the psychology. When the actor hits that perfect freeze, they are trained through years of rigorous training to lock their core and, crucially, to hold their breath. The combination of stopped external motion, strained muscles, and held breath creates this tremendous internal potential energy. You can think of it like kinetic energy being converted entirely into potential energy.
Like a dam holding back a flood of action.
Exactly. A dam.
I've actually read accounts that the audience could almost feel this tension in the air, that it's an involuntary physical response to what the actor is doing.
That is the design objective. The source material argues this technique is engineered to make the audience feel almost physically this contained high-potential energy. They aren't just observing a static picture. They are waiting for the dam to break. They're waiting for the release, which is when the movement starts again.
So the better the me, the longer the breath is held.
The greater the tension built up in the theater. It guarantees this deep, involuntary physical engagement from everyone watching. The whole system is designed to trigger a shared, palpable, physiological response.
So the me is this complex protocol. You've got time dilation through the physical freeze, you've got focus control with the Tenchi-gan, and the physiological trigger of energy damming. It's a full-stack attention hack delivered by one person.
A single human body.
But that hack can't work on its own, can it? It needs immediate, high-fidelity feedback, which I guess brings us to the auditory system, right? The auditory component. The Tsuke, that's the sound of the wooden clappers being beaten against a board. And much like the me, the conventional wisdom is that this is just a basic sound effect.
It's like a door slamming in a modern play.
Exactly. But these sources define it as something very different. Audio haptic feedback.
We talk about haptics today almost exclusively with digital devices, right? A vibration in your phone or your game controller that simulates a sense of touch. The Tsuke performs the exact same function for the audience, but it does it purely with sound waves. It creates this sharp, high-frequency sound that is synchronized perfectly with the actor's most crucial moments.
So what's the key difference here? Why is it considered haptic and not just a standard sound effect?
Because it's designed to deliver the feeling of impact, not just the sound of an action.
Okay, unpack that.
When the actor executes a sharp turn, or a foot stamp, or, most importantly, when they land the me, the Tsuke delivers a perfectly timed, explosive CR hack.
And the frequency matters.
The frequency is specifically chosen to cut through all the ambient noise and register in your brain, not just as sound, but as an acute, punctuated event that is married seamlessly to the visual. It is the sound of the feeling.
It's like turning up the bass on a physical moment until you can feel it resonating in your chest. The sound is amplifying the visual impact directly into the audience's sensory system.
Precisely. If the me is the sudden visual close-up, the tsuke is the accompanying audio spike that ensures the moment is registered as high-priority information. And this need for synchronization leads us to the extreme technical demands placed on the Tsuke-uchi.
The operator of the clappers.
Right. This person isn't just a sound tech. They're a low-latency system operator.
In a live performance, an actor might change their timing by a fraction of a second from night to night. Any latency there would just ruin the whole haptic effect. That sounds like an impossibly difficult job for a human operator.
It demands an extreme, almost inhuman fidelity. The training dictates that the Tsuke-uchi has to breathe and even try to synchronize their internal rhythm with the actor they're supporting.
So they aren't just watching the actor's foot come down.
No. They are feeling the internal buildup of the me through the rhythm of the performance. If they are off by even 50 milliseconds, the seamless connection between the visual and the audio, the feeling of the impact is broken.
And the me just becomes a pose with a clumsy sound effect.
It loses all its power.
So if this sound is generated live, instantaneously, based on the actor's immediate input, then this is really an early, highly refined form of what we'd call generative audio.
That's the technical term we're applying to it. It's not pre-recorded. It is sound generated in real time based on the actor's movement as input. And because the input is the actor's internal rhythm, their breath, their physical tension, it guarantees a response that's perfectly tailored to that unique, one-of-a-kind performance.
The sound is an integral generative part of the system, not just some external add-on.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've established how Kabuki hacks time and sound. We've shown how they control focus and impact. Now we have to move to the next layer of complexity, which is, for me, maybe the most impressive of all, how they bioengineered the physical body itself to render abstract concepts.
All right, so we're now talking about the onagata, the male actor who plays female roles. In, traditional studies, this is usually classified as a historical or cultural tradition of cross-dressing.
Right, that's the simple label for it.
But the technical analysis in these sources just completely throws that framework out. They view the onagata as the construction of a hyper-female concept, a sophisticated exercise in biohacking. The core insight here is that the onagata is engineered to exceed biological reality. They are not trying to mimic a real woman.
They're not going for realism.
Not at all. They're striving to create an idealized, concentrated, abstracted version of femininity, a performance that is, within the form, narratively and aesthetically superior to what a biologically female actor might embody.
That immediately makes sense of the complexity of the roles. It's not about realistic portrayal. It's about presenting the purest possible data set of grace, restraint, and beauty. Which brings us right to the killer phrase.
Let's hear it.
They are rendering the concept of femininity. It is, in technical terms, the compression and decompression of femininity data.
And to render that abstract concept using a male body, the training system becomes applied bioengineering. It's specifically designed to overcome and re-engineer the natural male anatomy. And we can start with the skeleton itself.
The shoulders.
The shoulders. The primary difference between the male and female form, especially under all those layers of a kimono, is often the silhouette of the upper body.
Male shoulders are typically wider, presenting a broader frame. The aesthetic ideal in Kabuki required the exact opposite, a gentle, sloping line from the neck down, which we often associate with fragility or elegance.
To get that, the onagata actor uses a technique called scapula depression. And this is an intense, constant physical technique where the actor pulls their shoulder blades down and together at the same time.
So it's an active muscular constraint.
It's an active muscular constraint that physically eliminates the width of the male shoulder and forces the chest into a specific, slightly compressed posture. It is a painful, unnatural state that they maintain through sheer muscle discipline.
So it's not padding, which is what I think a lot of people would assume. It is an active, sustained modification of the body's own silhouette, using internal muscles to override the male skeleton.
It is the ultimate form of body modification for a performance. And the implications of that constant, constrained posture fundamentally change how they interact with space, which leads us directly to the training for movement.
The famous paper walk.
The paper walk.
Tell us more about that. How does imagining a piece of paper between your knees bioengineer your gait?
It forces a constant inward physical constraint. The natural male walk uses outward momentum and a wider stride. The paper walk enforces restraint. It keeps the movement constrained and turned inward,
The imagined paper.
which they must never, ever drop forces the knees to stay close together, and that fundamentally alters the actor's center of gravity. They have to move without using the natural pendulum swing of the legs.
So the walk itself becomes this compressed, highly stylized representation of grace. It's like it filters out all the unnecessary data of natural human motion.
Leaving only the pure, refined essence of the movement they want to convey.
That is the function of the rendering process.
It is, and this constraint is carried through their entire movement vocabulary, which is encapsulated by the principle of spatial reduction. This contrasts sharply with the male roles.
Right, male roles are trained to expand into space, wide stances, broad gestures.
Emphasizing dominance and physical power.
The Anagata, then, has to do the conceptual opposite, implode space.
Exactly. Their entire performance is defined by constraint, by occupying less volume. A key technique for this is height stealing.
Height stealing.
Even when they're standing perfectly still, the Anagata actor keeps their knees deeply bent. They are constantly holding tension in their legs, forcing their torso to remain slightly lower than its natural height.
So the body appears smaller, lighter, more constrained.
All essential elements in the engineered concept of femininity they are rendering. It is a stunning example of biomechanical engineering designed solely for narrative communication.
I have to challenge this, though, a little bit. If the goal is purely about rendering this abstract, idealized concept, this hyper-female, why wouldn't they just use biologically female actors who already have the fundamental skeletal structure?
That's a crucial technical question.
Yeah.
And the sources suggest that the level of control afforded by the Anagata training is superior. A biologically female actor, while having the natural form, would still move according to natural, unconstrained human biology. The Anagata training is a system built from scratch to create a purified, constrained, and formalized movement vocabulary.
They overcome the noise of natural movement.
Through decades of discipline, yes. They are a dedicated system built for maximum output of the concept. They achieve a level of aesthetic and emotional fidelity that the tradition decided was necessary for the hyper-realism the narrative required. It's an exercise in perfecting the medium, the body for the message, which is the concept.
Okay, so from the engineered body, we transition to the engineered face. Kumadori, the elaborate kabuki makeup, if the Anagata provides the bio-hardware.
Then Kumadori is the high-contrast user interface, the UI.
This is where we have to go back to the viewing environment again, right? These theaters were large, and they were lit only by candlelight.
So the audience needed to read complex character information, emotional state, identity narrative function, from a great distance, instantly. Kumadori is designed specifically to solve that problem. It's a high-contrast UI system optimized for long-distance, low-light legibility.
And it has to serve two purposes at once. Semantic, who is this character? And functional, what are they feeling right now?
Absolutely. Let's look at the function first. The makeup lines are not abstract decoration.
They look it to the untrained eye.
They do, but they're meticulously applied to follow the actor's actual facial muscles, the specific muscle groups that express anger, fear, determination, sadness. But the lines exaggerate them, effectively rendering the emotion at 200% resolution.
So when the actor tenses their jaw in anger, the Kumadori lines, which run along that jaw muscle, make that tension visible from the cheap seats in the back. It's like turning up the contrast on your screen to maximum to make sure the information gets through.
That is the engineering goal. It ensures that the emotional state is instantly readable across a dimly lit room. The exaggeration is the key. The audience doesn't waste precious cognitive time trying to decode some ambiguous facial expression. The feeling is broadcast instantly via these hyper-visible UI lines.
Okay, now let's get into the semantics. The color-coded system that instantly classifies the character type. This is like a very early version of data tagging in real time. Let's start with the dominant color, red, Beniguma.
The color choices are deeply semantic, and they're rooted in a kind of biological understanding. Red lines, the Beniguma, signify the visual representation of blood vessels expanding.
The biological response to excitement, heat, life force.
Exactly. So red is universally used for the hero. It signifies justice, youth, and passion. It communicates an active, positive energy flow, a character operating at peak vitality.
Which means blue, or Iguma, must represent the opposite, the absence of that life force.
Correct. Blue signifies cold blood, or lack of warmth and vitality. If red is the active hero, blue is reserved for the antagonists, villains, ghosts, or any non-human entities. It instantly establishes them as cold, malicious, deceptive, or supernatural.
Operating outside the realm of normal human warmth and justice.
Exactly.
Is the system ever mixed? Could a conflicted character be rendered using both red and blue?
Oh, for sure. The complexity of the UI allows for really sophisticated communication. A pure hero is mostly red, and a pure villain is blue. But a conflicted hero, maybe someone fighting their own inner demons, might incorporate subtle bluish or even purple tones mixed in with the red.
It signals a struggle.
It signals a struggle between internal coldness and external passion, and it allows the audience to process that nuanced character development instantaneously, just based on the visual language.
And then brown is reserved for creatures or entities that are fundamentally separate from that human moral axis.
Brown is specifically for beings linked to the earth in the primal state, demons or earth spirits. They are neither purely human and just, which is red, nor purely ethereal and evil, which is blue. They're elemental forces. This highly stylized, standardized color language ensures that the audience, the system's user, instantly understands the moral and supernatural coordinates of every character on stage.
So the biohacking of the body and the UI design of the face combine to create this deeply engineered physical performance system. We've optimized the actor. So now how does the structure of the theater itself function as part of this technology?
Well, when we talk about immersive experiences today, we immediately think of a device, right? A VR headset that replaces reality, or AR glasses that overlay data onto it.
Sure.
Kabuki achieves spatial immersion using a piece of architecture, the hanamichi, or the flower path. And it extends directly from the main stage right through the middle of the audience.
This really highlights the core difference between this analog system and, say, Western theatrical tradition. Western theater has its proscenium arch, the picture frame, and it's designed explicitly to separate the fictional world from our reality, to maintain that fourth wall.
The hanamichi is the structural opposite. It's described as the physical interface that physically destroys the fourth wall. It is a wooden bridge between two dimensions. When an actor steps onto the hanamichi, they have physically, literally, violated the audience's reality.
It's an immersive interface built with wood. That phrase just perfectly captures how a physical structure can function as a technical interface. And the violation isn't an accident. It's a calculated move designed to overwhelm the audience with sensory input.
The violation is systematic and it's immediate. When an actor performs a dramatic entrance or a pivotal scene, or, crucially, a me on the hanamichi, they are moving directly through the audience's space. The viewing experience shifts from observing a distant spectacle to
physical, intimate coexistence with the fictional dimension.
That's it.
What are the specific sensory inputs that overwhelm you at that distance? We're beyond just sight and sound now, aren't we?
Oh, we shift into the domain of high-fidelity sensory input.
Yeah.
Because the actor is only feet away, the audience is forced to engage with olfactory and micro-auditory details that are completely lost in a traditional proscenium theater.
The smell.
The sources really emphasize the smell, the distinctive, often highly concentrated perfume or body odor of the actor, the scent of their expensive silks, the heavy aroma of their rice flour makeup. This sensory input is entirely involuntary. You are breathing in the character's presence.
That dramatically alters the emotional transaction, doesn't it? You're not just watching a character who is angry, you're smelling the musk of their effort and hearing the rustle of their costume as they storm past you.
Absolutely. And the microacoustics are key. The audience is forced to hear the actor's breathing. When an actor is executing the me, that strenuous pose where they're holding their breath for energy damming, that labored, held breath is suddenly right next to you, it forces this tangible, shared, physical moment of tension. The audience is involuntarily pulled into the fiction because the fictional dimension has physically entered their space. It's using proximity as a tool for forced immersion.
I wonder how they...
Usually, yeah. When the actor steps onto the hanamichi, they aren't just walking, they're entering a spotlight. The entire system is designed to lock the audience onto that interface, treating it as a calculated, high-impact interruption of reality. The physical bridge is only crossed when the narrative demands maximum emotional or dramatic intensity.
So this structure creates a permanent bridge, which allows the fictional dimension and the reality dimension to overlap, and that sets the stage for specific, localized shock devices.
Precisely. If the hanamichi is the permanent AR interface, it needs specific hardware peripherals to maximize its effect. Which brings us to the Sapon trap.
The Sapon trap is maybe the clearest example of analog hardware designed purely for dramatic effect and sensory shock. We are talking about a physical elevator device strategically placed on the hanamichi.
The Sapon is a dedicated lift. It's a small trapdoor set into the walkway, often closer to the audience's main seating area than the main stage. And crucially, it's distinct from the bigger main stage lifts or the revolving stage mechanisms. It has one specific high-impact function.
And that function is reserved almost exclusively for supernatural appearances.
Yes. Ghosts, spirits, magical characters, or terrifying demons are the only ones who ascend from the Sapon. And why? Because the device utilizes classic, highly effective jump scare mechanics, a concept we usually associate with movies or video games.
It just breaks all spatial expectations. The audience is trained to expect characters to enter from the wings or maybe from the back of the Hanamichi and walk toward them. The Sapon forces a character to materialize instantly, seemingly rising from the earth itself, right in the middle of the audience's physical domain.
This instant, localized shock is incredibly engaging. If you were sitting near the Sapon, a character, maybe a figure wearing terrifying Kumadori makeup or elaborate ghost silks, suddenly materializes just a few feet away from you. It leverages the element of surprise and proximity. The physical space of the audience is weaponized as an active part of the narrative device. It's designed to maximize shock and engagement.
It must have been an incredible, visceral experience for an Edo audience. Unlike the slow reveal of a ghost on the main stage, the Sapon entrance momentarily breaks your suspension of disbelief by creating a physical impossibility within your immediate shared reality.
The sources emphasize the technical genius of this placement. By positioning it on the Hanamichi interface, they ensure the shock happens not in the fictional world, but in the audience's reality.
And it's all synchronized.
Oh, perfectly.
Yeah.
The rising character is accompanied by perfectly synchronized Tsuke sounds, that audio-haptic feedback, to further underscore the dramatic and often frightening emergence. The sound effect and the visual shock are timed to perfection, creating a moment of maximum sensory overload.
It's the combination of all our technical elements coming together. You have the spatial interface of the Hanamichi, the physical shock delivery system of the Sapon, the high-contrast UI of the Kumadori, and the synchronized auditory impact of the Tsuke. It's a complete system architecture for managing emotional output.
That is the ultimate takeaway. This entire structure, this system of wood, silk, makeup, and years of physical discipline, it isn't merely theater. It is a highly optimized, sophisticated, immersive system designed with incredible fidelity for the human receiver.
This entire deep dive has just radically redefined what we mean when we use the word technology. We've broken down Kabuki not as an art form, but as this sophisticated blend of visual processing, right? The manual bullet time of the me,
Bioengineering, the physical rendering of gender concepts with the Onagata.
haptic design with the generative audio of the Tsuki, and this environmental AR design with the interface of the Hanamichi and the jump scare mechanics of the Sapon.
The significance here for you listening is profound, I think. It demonstrates that the highest form of technological innovation is fundamentally about hacking human perception in the human body. The 17th century system proves that the most powerful form of immersion doesn't require electricity or processing speed or gigabytes of data. It requires a deep technical understanding of the human body and mind,
How to modulate focus.
how to generate physiological tension, and how to create universal meaning through standardized, high-contrast interfaces.
They didn't just tell a story, they optimized the delivery system for maximum human input and output. They mastered controlling the audience's physical and emotional response with incredible fidelity, all based on these analog mechanisms. Using compression and rendering techniques we assume are purely digital inventions.
They optimized for the human sensorium. And this analog mastery achieved results that, often exceed what modern, hyper-realistic simulations can offer. The Onagata rendering the concept of femininity, for instance, achieves a kind of narrative truth that a literal representation often fails to capture.
So let's leave you with a final provocative thought to consider. In an age where digital immersion, VR, and AR aims to perfectly simulate reality and often works so hard to hide the technology that drives it, what power is inherently lost when we stop using carefully engineered analog hacks?
Hacks like the Tsuke or the Me.
Right. Hacks that deliberately reveal the artifice in order to precisely control human attention and emotion. Does the pursuit of perfect simulation sacrifice the powerful, intentional, and concentrated emotional outcome achieved by a meticulously rendered concept?
Something to mull over next time you interact with any form of sophisticated technology, be it digital or wood and silk.